Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce my guest today. Her name is Halah Ladson. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, Butcher Ladson. Yep.
Well, what a pleasure to be with you. And thank you again for taking a couple minutes out of your day to spend with us and give us some of your insight. Jumping right into it, if you don't mind, what I'd like to do is ask you a few questions. And the first question I'd like is to hear your story. You're the president and broker in charge of Queen City Management Services. How did you get involved? How did you get involved in real estate and property management?
So I have, and it's very nice to be here, and I really appreciate it. I have been in real estate since 2004. So I'm an oldie. I've been around for a long
Okay.
time. I have been licensed in four different states. So I practiced in New York State when I lived in Long Island. So I did retail in Suffolk County and a little bit in Nassau County many moons ago. And then I did investment real estate in Philly. So I had my license in Pennsylvania as well. And then I came down to North Carolina and I currently have my license in North and South Carolina. So I graduated from UNC Charlotte in 2002, and I have a computer science background and a Spanish background. And so in the late 90s, all the rage was computer science. And so when I was graduating high school, they're like, okay, go into computer science. This is what you need to do in the late 90s. And absolutely hated it. And so in the early 2000s, I was up really late, as most college kids were, at 2 o'clock in the morning watching, oh God, what was it? Carlton Sheets, how to buy money with how to buy real estate with no money down way back when.
Yeah,
So I was up at 2
OPM.
o'clock in the morning and looked at that. And then I bought Rich Dad Poor Dad and read the book. And I was 22 and graduated college and did not want to do computer science and got my real estate license and never looked back.
Yeah, I got involved with the Carlton Sheets back in the day myself.
I've always gravitated more towards the investment side of real estate. So I did retail for a little bit when I was in Long Island. And then I ended up spending a lot of time in the city, worked in the city, and hooked up with people that were flipping houses in Philly. And they were doing bus tours in Philadelphia. So they were taking New Yorkers and they were bringing them down to Philly because New Yorkers had money, but they didn't have New York money. So they could, $100,000 in New York City and Queens and then Brooklyn and Nassau County is nothing. But you can go to Philly an hour and a half, 2 hours away, and they were able to get brownstones over by Temple University and Temple Hospital area. So this is back in the mid 2000s. And so I did that for 3 years. So I took 50, 75, 100 investors once a month, once every 2 months, once a quarter down to Philly. And so I did that for a while. Absolutely loved it. Went to the auctions in Philly. So the grimy, the grimy part of real estate, the auctions, the squatters, the going into the vacant properties and, having a hole in the roof was just so fun for me. And it was awesome. And I got my first taste of that in like 2005. So I gave up the retail stuff and I said, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing retail and got into the investments. 2008 happened. So there was a lot of investments after 2008. And then, life was lifing at the time. And I waved my white flag in New York about 2010. I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I was getting into my early 30s, wanted to start a family. And New York is not where I wanted to have kids. And so I ended up coming back to Charlotte, where my mom is, my brothers and sisters. And so I planted myself here, then got into property management here. And then the property management company went under. They were flipping houses as well. So they were buying it, renovating it, and then renting it out. And then when the property management company went bust, they're kind of like, Halah, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I said, okay. And then that's when I opened my brokerage in 2013. And I've been in business ever since.
So now you're in Charlotte. Tell us a little bit about the market in Charlotte. Charlotte's one of the fastest growing cities in the country. So, what makes the Charlotte market so attractive for real estate investors right now, in your opinion?
Yeah, so I think the Charlotte market, we've been on the fastest growing cities list, North Carolina in general. So Raleigh's been on there, Charlotte's been on there. We've been competing back and forth with Raleigh for a while now, for close to a decade. And it's so attractive to come down because it we're small but big and we're close to everything. So you're 2 hours from the mountains. You can go up to Asheville and spend some time in the mountains. And we're 3 hours from the beach. And we're 3.5 hours from Atlanta. And we're 5.5, depending on the traffic, to DC if we need to. We've got American Airlines as the hub here. And so we've got plenty of flights that are coming in and out, direct and connecting flights all the time. And then again, we're so close to South Carolina and so close to the beaches over there, to Charleston, and just we're positioned very nicely to have access to a lot of really cool things. And I think that people, as they're coming north, and you're in Idaho, so I don't know if you know, they call them halfbacks. And so New Yorkers come down, they go to Florida, then Florida gets too hot, so then they come halfway back, and halfway back is Charlotte, and that's where they end.
Halfbacks.
So they call them halfbacks because
I never heard of that.
yeah, so Charlotte has a lot of New Yorkers, a lot of people from New York and New Jersey and Philadelphia, DC, because they get tired of the city life and they want to come down here. And so they can get, a house with half an acre. And you don't get that when you go further up on the East Coast. I think that's what makes it so attractive.
So let's move forward. So as far as people that end up buying property and live in the Charlotte area or North Carolina, a lot of landlords feel like they need to self-manage it first. And at some point, it makes sense for them to switch over to a professional management company. When is it right for someone to transition to a management team?
Yeah. And I think that, I'm an investor myself and I manage my own properties. And I think that when you've got homeowners that are either accidental landlords that either got a job transfer or they're moving away for something that happened in their life at the moment, and they're kind of like thrown into it, and it's kind of being thrown into a management job when you really don't know what you're doing. And there are a lot of scams going on right now with tenant screening and finding proper tenants and identity theft and the faking of documents. I mean, AI has done all of that as far as it becomes very easy to fabricate and edit PDFs so that it can look like you're working somewhere and you've been working for a really long time. And so the landlords, when they self-manage, usually starts out good, and then they kind of come around when the tenant's not paying rent on time, or there's supposed to be 2 people in the house and there ends up being 8 people in the house.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to have
Right.
any dogs. They're not supposed to have cars in the driveway, 1 car, 2 cars, 8 cars. And so it tends to get a little out of hand. And then you get into it and then you're like, oh, this might be a little bit more than what I can handle. And then you start to get a bad taste in your mouth about real estate, and you start getting a bad taste in your mouth about, is this really worth it? And you start to get tired because you're not only managing your rental properties, but you're managing your personal house, you're managing your own repairs in your house, you're managing your own kids, your own, husband or wife, your own repairs that need to be taken care of. And so it just becomes too much. When you have a professional come in, you get to kind of essentially have a partner that gets to come in and say, okay, I'm going to offload this kind of stress on your shoulders. You're going to take care of this, and then I'm going to take care of this, and we're going to partner together, and we're going to grow this together. And that's ultimately what my goal is with all my clients, is that, I come in whether you have one property or you have 10 properties. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let's sit down and strategize. Let's talk about what's your goal? Are we growing the portfolio? Are we maintaining the portfolio? Is this going to pay for Johnny's college? Are we going to use this for retirement money? Like, let's partner together and strategize the best way that this can work a win-win situation for you and for me long term. So to go back to what we talked about is that the owners self-manage in the beginning because it's almost, like I said, sometimes it's accidental or they choose to do it on their own because they don't see the value in bringing in a professional. Once you have a professional and you're able to sit down and strategize and talk about a real estate portfolio and talk about investments and talk about 1031 exchanges, talk about going to the auctions and have somebody sit with you and say, okay, let's look at your financial portfolio. Where does this fit into this? There's a lot more value in that when you bring somebody in. And that's what I try to do with my clients. I can't speak for other management companies, but I know that's where I give the type of service I give to my clients all the time.
Yeah, valuable for sure. So that being said, you work with both the new investor and the experienced portfolio owner, right? So what are the most common mistakes that the first time landlord typically makes? What are those common mistakes that people get into? And maybe the mistake is, hey, I didn't hire a property manager. I don't know. But outside of that one, what do you think it would be?
So screening for sure is on the front end.
Okay.
So screening the tenants, it can sometimes be a challenge because we're regulated by the state. And then also because we have access to social security numbers and people's ID and identity theft and things like that, that there's an extra layer of protection that we have to go through when people are giving us their socials.
Okay.
So that we can screen backgrounds and pull out, what their debt looks like and what their judgments look like and what their police records look like and all of that criminal background. And so screening on the front end for sure would be where some of the owners get overwhelmed or make improper assessments. And then second would be, I think sometimes when they're marketing the properties, they are unfamiliar with some things in regards to regulations, in regards to fair housing, in regards to some things that you can say and you can't say, compliance on how security deposits are kept and how records are kept and backgrounds are kept. And so I think some of the owners, just because they're not in the business all the time, they're not aware of some of the compliance things that could open them up to some legalities that if you're just trying to get the house rented because you just want to pay the mortgage, usually legalities are on the back end or never thought of. And I think about that on the front end coming from New York. You've got 5 attorneys on speed dial. So it's just part of the nature of doing business in the city. So anybody from DC up is like, oh no, I got to call my accountant and call my attorney first. And I bring that down with me. And sometimes the landlords, if you're just getting into the business, you don't think about that.
Boy.
Yeah. So there's risk management on the back end that you're kind of like, you didn't know about all that. So, I mean, screening is one, the risk management or compliance with the state where you're renting the houses. And then in general, just dealing with people that are in your house,
Right.
having an expectation of how you would treat the house versus
Right.
how somebody else treats the house. And if the expectations are not aligned, sometimes it can make the relationship between the owner and the tenant challenging. To say the least, you could say adversarial. And it helps to have a mediator in the middle sometimes. And which is exactly what attorneys do when you're going to a conflict and you have a representation, exactly what real estate agents do in the transaction of buying and selling a house. A 1031 intermediary does, because that's their name between the IRS, you paying taxes on the exchange property for your investment property. So there's benefits to having that buffer to make sure that things are all done proper and everybody keeps their cool and things are all managed and handled within expectation. So
At the end of the day, as a seasoned professional like yourself, you have access to tools and as well as the knowledge of the regulations that surround this endeavor. And you're able to leverage those, whereas the individual or non-professional property manager would not have access to those things. And so therefore, having access, putting it all together sets you apart and actually makes the transaction, makes the program much more professional and successful at the end of the day. Plus, you don't have a personal a personal stake in it outside of your reputation as a business owner, but in the property itself, you treat it more professionally, whereas the homeowner who's renting his place might treat it a little more personally.
yeah, and I think that, having that buffer, I'm the 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 owner and I are always in aligned with the same goals because we're we want the property rented. We want to have it rented to somebody that's going to take care of the property and who's going to be responsible and respectful and put the maintenance request in when they're supposed to, pay their rent when they're supposed to on time, and just overall just have a goodness and a sense of righteousness, a rightness about maintaining somebody else's property. Sometimes having us come in as professionals, like I said, the buffers, we do give the owners some space to kind of breathe a little bit or relax in that or manage their own expectations in that, some people will take care of the house the way that you want them to, and sometimes they won't, but it's still going to be okay. It's still going
Got
to
it.
be okay long term.
So let's say that we do have somebody that wants to start their own real estate portfolio today. What three things would you recommend that person focus on first?
So if they're going to start their portfolio, we've got to come up with a plan. We need to look at capital. We need to talk about timeline, and we need to talk about what their expected ROI is, their return on investment is, and how they want to split up their investment portfolio because there's many ways to skin a cat. And we need to know what you're working with and what's going to be the greatest and best, most advantageous way to get you to your ROI goal in the timeline that you've given.
All right, let's move on a little bit and let's talk about tenant relations and retention. So your company emphasizes tenant satisfaction and proactive maintenance. How does taking care of tenants actually improve the financial performance of the property?
So when the tenants are happy, I mean, this goes very similar to how it is to, is it cheaper to hire new employees or is it cheaper to keep the ones that you have and keep them happy at their job? And so if you have current tenants and they're in your property and they like your property and, single family homes have less transition than say condos or apartments. And so if you have people that are in your single family homes, and if they have, small children or they have a family, people don't like to move very often. And so you want to keep them happy and have a good relationship. And if they're good people and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, then you want to encourage that type of relationship. It's just good business. It's good policy across the board, whether you're in business or personal. I mean, if your neighbors are good to you, then yeah, if they need something, you want to help your neighbors out. And so
Sure.
that's the same thing with any of the tenants. And so you have less turnover, you have less headache, there's less expense on the owner, the record keeping is easier. It's just having less transition overall because you have happy tenants is beneficial to everybody on board.
So let's talk about out of state investors right now. So there's a lot of investors who want to buy property in a growing market like Charlotte, and they don't live there. So what should an out of state investor know before buying rental property? Let's say in the Charlotte area where you work specifically.
And so if you're going to buy real estate anywhere and and you don't have boots on the ground, then it's a it's a challenging industry to be in without having, people to lay eyes on your real estate. With property management, for an out-of-state investor, it can be a hands-off transaction, completely hands-off, but it depends on who your partner is, because you need somebody here that's going to be on the ground, and you need somebody here that's going to be able to handle the inspections. You're going to need somebody who's going to be able to verify, is there a leak in the roof? Is it the old windows that are causing a problem? Is there, do the gutters need to be cleaned? Is that what the problem is? So they're going to need to have somebody here to help develop their community and their village, because anytime we do business, no matter what industry that you're in, we're not in business by ourselves. We have vendors, we have people that we work with, we have client onboarding, we have HR, we have different departments and everything that you have to work to make the entire ecosystem function properly. And so when you get into real estate, just as any other business, it's an ecosystem that needs to run properly in order for it to be a successful business. And if you're buying real estate out of state and you don't have boots on the ground and you don't have a good team of people, then it's probably not going to be a very good experience for you, and it could be very expensive.
Risky.
Could be very expensive and could be very risky.
Gotcha.
And leave a bad taste in your mouth for real estate
Yeah.
when it doesn't have to be that way.
So it's all about having the right team in place, even if you are an out-of-state buyer.
Yes.
Okay, I get it. So let's transition a little bit here. So how does your client get a hold of you? How do they find you? What are you doing to continually bring in new clients so that you grow your company?
So I am a bit of a boutique when it comes to my service with my clients. My clients have been with me, many of them have been with me since 2013, and we've done multiple business or transactions together. And again, I become part of their financial board of directors, I like to call it.
Right.
And my specialty is just residential real estate and property management. And I just fit into that niche. And they're like, Halah, we want some transactions and things with, we want to talk about it with our real estate. And I help them with that. Even if it's not in Charlotte, if they've got stuff going on in Jersey, they've got stuff going on in New York, they've got stuff in DC, and they want to talk to somebody about it, call me. We talk about it all the time. And because of that, I'm a boutique in the service because most of my clients have my cell number, my personal cell number. And so they get a hold of me. I've got a team that supports me. I've got a team that helps me. I work with AI, so I've got AI that supports me as well. But in the client relationship, I take very seriously in that if they need something and they want to talk to me, they get to talk to me. They don't get to talk to AI. They get to talk to me.
So you're saying then that it's primarily repeat business from former clients, and then
Yes.
of course referrals because they love you and they tell their friend that's trying to do a deal too that they could reach out to you. Are you also using, you mentioned AI, so are you using AI for lead generation as well? Is that how you're doing it?
AI, it's something new that we're rolling out for the first quarter of 2026. And so I'm super excited about that because I think with AI, the biggest thing in the real estate market, not just on property management, but for small business in general, is lead generation and lead capture. And I think that, speed to lead is the most important thing. And so when somebody calls me that I have a house to rent, I need to get it rented and I need to get back to that tenant. And sometimes I'm in a position to where I can't answer my phone, can't answer the emails, I can't answer my text. And so tenant leads are very quick and very fickle because they're looking for a house. So they're looking at multiple houses. And so if it's 3 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours later, they don't even remember what house they were calling about. And so they're looking at so many in that price point that you've got to remind them what house it was, and oh, it was on
Right.
this street, oh, it was in this zip code. And so a putting AI for lead capture and lead generation and speed to lead workflows is extremely beneficial in capturing all that information and leading to conversions, whether they're on the tenant side or on the sales side or the property management side. So it's the speed to lead is the most. So
Yeah.
we're super
Okay.
excited about the enrollment for the AI.
Proud of you to get ahead of it and integrate it because that's really what it's all about. AI is not only the present, it is the future. And those of us who refuse to play along will be left in the dirt. Last but not least, if you don't mind, can you give us a sense of your view of the future? Let's say 5, 10 years down the road, right there in Charlotte, what is the rental market and the property management industry? What will it look like?
There's going to be an immense amount of automation that's coming
Mm,
in to where human interaction and human touch is going to be at a premium. And so we're already in a place to where you can book your own appointments. You can do self showings. So you don't have to meet somebody to show and let you into a property. A lot of
wow.
times I do a lot of times with videos and I put it on my YouTube channel. And so if somebody wants to see the house, I will send them a YouTube video and make sure that they see the interior of the house. And then we've got qualifying questions to ask them. And so all of this is done through workflows and automation. And so I think 5 years, 7 years, 10 years down the road, AI is going to be running 75 to 80% of the operations of the business. And the human interaction, the client interaction is going to be coming at a premium. And I think that as people are growing and as people are developing and AI is coming and it's becoming more commonplace. And I can give you the example of customer service, where customer service has been automated for a long time. And when we actually get a human on the phone, we're like, oh my God, we're so excited because we actually speak to a person because we've been conditioned for so long to where we've been speaking to AI and the bigger businesses and things like that. And I think in the real estate business, and I think in businesses in general, the automation and the workflow processes is beneficial. It's going to be extremely beneficial and is going to give us a lot of time as business owners and entrepreneurs, give us a lot of time. And human connection is going to be a premium. So it's going to be like 90% of the work is done. And then you come in and be like, you close the deal. Oh my God, I'm so glad to see you. We got everything done. Oh, this is so great to finally meet you. And you're right there shaking hands and we got everything taken care of. And it's so nice to meet you. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, that's what's coming.
Okay. So when you guys are implementing your AI to address these different areas in your business, are you doing all of this in-house or are you working with an agency or some company that helps you implement? How did you go about making or adapting this into your business?
So I think my personality is I want to do. I want to do it. I want to figure it out and I want to do it. And so I am working with, we have a team and we have partners that are helping us with the implementation on the back end, but I'm extremely active in all of the AI implementation, in the workflow, in the processes, in the voice agents, in the chat box. And it's super important because there's hesitation in the real estate business on how far AI can go because we're licensed and there is a fine line as far as just like attorneys and just like accountants. There's a fine line of what can be discussed to make sure that we're, compliant with state law and general statutes, et cetera. And so there is still a learning curve that is going through the real estate market on the professional side with buyers and sellers and brokers, as well as with property management, in that we're still adjusting to how all of that works to make sure we're compliant with the laws, but it's coming. And because of that and the risk management and all of that, I'm in I'm in the business. I'm in it. What are we doing? How is this working? Make sure we've got general statutes that we're training them on and training the AI and training the modulars. Okay, we can say this, we can't say this. Pull this, real estate brokerage contract and pull this from South Carolina. It's different in North Carolina. So it's training it to say, okay, I can give you so much information, but I'm not a licensed real estate broker. I've got to pause you right here. We need to get you transferred over to a live agent. Somebody will be back in touch with you shortly. So, and because of all of that and the compliance is why I'm heavily involved.
Got it. Yeah. And there's a certain amount of confidentiality there that
Exactly.
you has to be maintained. Yeah, of course. I get it. Wow. Well, all I can say is that this has been a very informative conversation, and I have certainly enjoyed it. And once again, I would like to thank my guest, Halah Ladson.